Thank you for joining me. Today we're continuing our look at comparing decimals. This is part 2 and this corresponds with Unit 1, Lesson 12. So here's our problem. We want to compare 0.19 and 0.022. Say, Ms. Sherman, you did not read that the math way. You're right, I didn't, because that gives you some clues on how to solve it, and I want you to think about it for a moment. At any time, I encourage you to pause the video. If you don't understand something, pause it, go back, rewatch, pause it, think about it. That's how you get better at math. Math takes a lot of practice. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write these numbers, and I'm going to line them up by their decimal. Excuse me, so 0.19. 0.19. And if you haven't already done this in your books, you can do it now because you do have your workbooks, your student journals there. Okay, so that's the first one. And this one, 0.022. Now, I could put a 0 here if I wanted. I personally think that's a little bit helpful, so I'm going to add it. I can always add zeros at this end of a number, and if it's after the decimal point, I can add zeros here. The first thing we do is we look at the number or the digit that has the highest value. In this case, it would be the tenths place. Which of these numbers has a higher value? Would it be the 1 or the 0? And in fact, I'm just going to write it over here. If we just look at the tenths place, 0.1, and we just look at the tenths place, 0.0. Right there, that tells us which number is going to be bigger and which one is smaller. Because it doesn't matter how many hundredths or thousandths there are. The fact that this one has a tenth and this one doesn't, that gives us what we need to know. So we know that this number is going to be bigger. Let's write the number in fraction form because I think that gives us some additional information. Okay, this is 19 hundredths. And this is 22 thousandths. In order to compare them, we really want to turn 19 hundredths into an equivalent fraction. So what I could do is 19 times 10, 100 times 10. That's going to equal 190 over 1,000. Well, that's basically the same as adding a 0 here and adding a 0 here. I just didn't show you what I was doing. But these are equivalent fractions. So here we can see that 190 thousandths is bigger than 22 thousandths. So this is how we would write that. This is the greater than sign. This is the less than sign. And of course you already know the equal sign. But it really matters which one of these you write, because it has to fit with reading from left to right. 190 thousandths is greater than 22 thousandths. Let's write that in decimal form. Choose a different color, and we have 0.19 is greater than 0.022. I say it like that when I'm writing. It helps me to keep track of which digit I'm writing. 19 hundredths is greater than 22 thousandths. We did it two ways. We looked at the first digit by the decimal point and we noticed that 1 is greater than 0, 1/10 is greater than 0/10. We also converted these to equivalent fractions, the 19 hundredths to 190 thousandths, and we saw that yes, it is bigger. So we checked our answer. Let's try the next one. All right, this one looks fairly simple. Let's see how it goes. Compare 0.004 and 0.03. Well, right off the bat, you might suspect, oh, Miss Sherman, 4 is greater than 3. Hang on a second. The whole number 4 is definitely greater than the whole number 3, but are we talking about whole numbers here? Let's look at the decimal points. Let's write it. Let's line up the decimal points. We have 0.004. We have 0.03. Let's start from the left. Look at the highest value we have, which is the hundredths place. Over here we have 3 hundredths. Here we have 0 hundredths. 3 hundredths. And 0 hundredths. The tenths were the same. That's why we went to the next place value. Well, 3 pennies is definitely more than 0 pennies. So we write off. We know that even though 4 is bigger than 3, 4 thousandths is less than 3 hundredths. And we could do that in fraction form to check. We have 4 thousandths here. And we have 3 hundredths. But remember, we can always append a 0 here. And so 3 hundredths is an equivalent fraction to 30 thousandths. And that makes it a little clearer to see which number is bigger, which number is smaller. Since we read from left to right, we would use the less than sign. If the 4 thousandths was greater, we would use the greater than sign. So 4 thousandths is less than 30 thousandths, and this is how we would write it for this particular problem. Thank you for joining me.